speaker today, Dr. Lalia Rach with Rach Enterprises. Hospitality is truly in Dr. Rach's blood, as she actually began her career at the ripe young age of 5 as her grandmother's helper in the restaurant she owned and operated in Spring Green, Wisconsin. Later, she began a managerial career in the hotel industry, transitioned to hotel sales, and began teaching hospitality-related classes at the Madison Area Technical College. She subsequently earned an MBA in management from the University of Wisconsin and transitioned to a career in hospitality, higher education, and hospitality industry consulting. She served both as the Dean of the School of Hotel, Restaurant, and Tourism Management at the University of New Haven in Connecticut, and at the same time formalized her consulting business as Rach Enterprises with clients across the globe. She later served as the founding dean of the hospitality program at New York University, located in New York. Rach Enterprises takes an uncommon sense approach to consulting and delivers genuine ideas that challenge tradition. For over 3 decades, Lalia has served as a trusted advisor to senior level executives at many leading organizations. Blending professionalism, intelligence, and enthusiasm, Lalia stimulates new thinking on leadership, risk-taking, strategy, and innovation for clients who are seeking to escape the status quo. She has also published extensively and is a highly sought-after speaker and moderator. She was recognized as one of the top 25 extraordinary minds in sales and marketing from HSMAI, the 33 most influential people in the travel industry from Travel Weekly, and was featured in the 25 most influential women in travel by Forbes Life Executive Women. She is also a former board member of 9 tourism and hotel related organizations. I am so excited to introduce Dr. Lalia Rach.
Well, thank you, Amy. I'm going to share my screen. So if you will give me 1 minute, ladies and gentlemen, I will do that. And now I will step back and say, good morning. I'm delighted to be with you today, and I can't thank Amy and Miranda and Brady and Elizabeth and so many other people for asking me to be with you today. And I want you to know, I think this is my 4th State of the Industry I've done for Southern California, MPI. And I've been at such historic locations as the Reagan Library, the LA Live, and the Beverly Hilton. And today, I am coming to you from the historic casita of Lalia Rach in Henderson, Nevada. So I'm keeping that streak of history alive. So when we talk about things today, I want you to know I am positively cautious. But I want you to hear positively. And so as we move through this, I ask you to listen. And when you don't like something, that's just fine, but know why you don't like it. And that's the key to anything. So Darren gave you lots of great information. And simply because you like something or didn't like something doesn't mean it should move to the top or the bottom of your list. The same for me. So Amy did such a great job. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I am very proud. That's my grandma's restaurant, and she had it for 40 years. I'm named for her. If you look at the real top, you see Lalia. That's my full name, and I won't waste any more time on it. I am consulting full-time in strategy and leadership, and so thank you, Amy, for my mother would be delighted to have heard how much you said. I want you to know that. So 2020. It was the year of survival. It was like no other in my memory at all. And I can't imagine you don't agree with me that there was not, it was in every way, every part of our life unusual. And so many of you had both tough personal and professional situations. And I am not trying to simply close the door. I want you to understand that on 2020, but I am going to be looking forward. And I remind those of you who may have lost your job, it wasn't because of you. You are not responsible. And so just breathing that in. For the rest of us who were fortunate enough to continue, all of us had the rhythm of our lives change. My grandniece is 2.5 years old, and I haven't hugged her since she was 8 months old. And every day that is just amazingly bad to me, but I'm positively thinking about when I do hug her, I don't want to crush her because I'm going to be hugging her so tightly. And the bottom line of all of this is we have changed. And what I want to ask you is, what did you find out about yourself in 2020? And I think you should find positive things you can build on. So for an example, I had to reinvent my business because my business, whether I was dealing with the C-suite in strategy or whether I was presenting, was in person. And I am now pretty much 90% virtual. And was I afraid? You bet. Oh my God. I can't even tell you. Like right now, you understand I see nobody. And so I, in my mind, just have to imagine, and I have something coming up and I'll tell you, I'm imagining you laughing. And I encourage you to recognize how you've reinvented yourself and how you've developed new skills. And so the fact is you survived. And that to me is enormous. So looking ahead, we are facing the same headwinds we faced today, almost through the first month of 2021, and the headwinds are still there. And so when I am going to present this to you, but I want you to know it is a guesstimate. Anybody who tells you they know how the year is going to unfold, well, buy swampland in Florida. You'd be better off rather than taking it at its value, because even what I'm telling you is a guesstimate. And so what do I see? I divided the year up into quarters, not unusual. And I'm saying quarter one is still 2020. We have a 15-month year. That's how I'm looking at it. You can also look and say, okay, well then maybe we only have a 9-month year in 2021. But the point of it is we are fighting the same battle over and over. And that is the issue. And I love this quote by Margaret Thatcher. And so recognize you can't, I mean, I know you get tired of it. I get tired of it, but you'd have to stay the course. And you have to be positively thinking to be prepared. I see quarter two as a blend of last year and this year. And it is all predicated upon what you're going to see in my next slide. So no, everything just goes out the window depending on the next slide. I do think in quarter three, we will fully move perhaps to the new year. And then finally, it's going to be 2021 in the fourth quarter. Now you can look at it any way you want. That isn't the point, but you do have to have some idea of how you're moving your business forward. You heard Fort Worth, they're ready, they're open, they're at 75%. And I know places that are still at 10, 15%. So it just depends on the destination. And what's the big kicker in all of this? The fact is that it is the vaccination that is lagging. There are approximately 330 million people in the United States, of which 74% are adults. Why do I highlight that? Only people 18 and over can get the vaccine. Of those people, 1.1% have received both doses. We started this in December 14th, 2020. 38 days later, folks, it's very little. And so the point of it is, how this is going to progress this year depends on the vaccine. Now, here is what you need to know. The drug companies are operating at 100%. There is no more. I mean, they can't, I don't care how much money would be thrown at them, they can't produce anymore at this time. Now, perhaps there's some miraculous thing we don't know of yet, you see? And so it doesn't matter to me, and don't make this political. It isn't political. It is the fact that we're right now, it's at the best it can be, but what has to improve is distribution. And that's what I'm going to be tracking this quarter, is the change in distribution. Because we know we have vaccine out there that hasn't been given, and we also know it has a shelf life. And so that's what you want to pay attention to. How is the vaccine? Secondly, you want to be aware that regardless of how if we really can get distribution going, it's not all over simply because we have a vaccine. We're still going to be wearing masks, perhaps even into next year. We're still, social distancing is not going away. And you know, you can call me a Pollyanna, that's just fine, but I see social distancing in some ways as very positive for our industry. Why? We were becoming overrun. We were becoming too crowded. There are destinations that the citizens of that destination were fed up with tourism because there was a lack of sustainable carrying capacity. You would look at some of the show. I mean, I don't know if any of you ever went to the CES, the Computer Electronics Show here in Las Vegas. Oh my God, it was wall-to-wall people. You couldn't even get to some exhibits. And so it isn't that I want to see the economic benefit go down, down, down. That isn't it, but it will make for a much better experience. And so I do look at things like that. And I pay attention to a variety of sources. I don't just find one that tells me what I want to hear. And that's a key to going forward. So a lot of people ask me, seriously, when will we return to normal? So I thought the best answer I could do is show you there are 5 towns you can move to. This is when I'm hoping you're laughing, that you can move to in the United States called normal. Because that's the only way, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to go back to normal. Because there is no going back. We are living our normal. I hate to tell you that. And if this is bothering you, I'm sorry I'm the bearer of bad news. But in human history, you never go back. You don't. And so think about what is happening. And what our normal is today is uncertainty. We always have uncertainty, but it's now with capital letters and big font. And that's really what's bothering us all. It is the enormous uncertainty. And it's not just the enormity, it's everything is uncertain. And everything is, the return is going to be uneven everywhere. And it's not just in the United States, it's globally. And there are some big things you've got to think about. So if I'm a meeting planner, where do my participants come from? And why does it matter? Well, we're going to have, and we are having, a different air transportation system. Tertiary and secondary cities are losing their air transport. They are. The industry is paring down. And what do we know? We know people who are now traveling in the pandemic, they expect to be able to go places with ease and safety. And what does that mean? It means primarily direct. Why are you seeing such a drive traffic to many parts of California still? Because they're remote, they're open, people feel safer, they can drive to them. And so recognize you as a supplier, a planner, it doesn't matter what you are in the industry, you've got to understand how these other industries have changed. Darren mentioned, I talked to someone in New York the other day and they said, Layla, you walk down the streets and the restaurants and the hotels that are shuttered and never to reopen. And so this is going to be some time until we see the vitality return. And finally, don't think what you believe is a fact. You know, I think if I look at an exercise video, I've exercised. Not a fact at all. And so what I can suggest to you is to prepare. And by preparing, I mean thinking ahead. I mean, not moving into doing until you've thought. And so what are some of the changes that are going to stay with us? Some change has accelerated due to COVID, and some change is due to COVID. Now, I'm not going to go all through this, and I will provide my presentation to the Southern California chapter, and they can make it available to anyone they want. What do I know? Well, finally, business realizes we can work remotely and be productive, and it can be quality. Do you know last year, about this time, about 15% of people worked remotely in the US. Now, well over 50%, from 15 to 50. That's not going to change. It isn't. But what will happen will go to a hybrid model so that the office isn't going away. It too will adjust. And so we'll go into the office. The best I can describe it now is periodically for meetings, for big projects, but you're not going to see the end to remote working. I have a great concern about one thing. Prior to COVID, you were doing more with less. And now you're being expected to do even more with less. And my concern is it's exponential. So for an example, if you were doing the work of a person and a half, you're now possibly doing the work of 3 people. And that can't continue. It is not humanly possible. And the drop-off will be in effectiveness and efficiency. Now remember, I say these things, but it doesn't mean it's going to change. But it does concern me. What do I know that's changed due to COVID? Long term for most people is now a month. And you know, for some businesses, it's less than a month. I mean, I remember not that long ago talking about 3-year plans. And yes, I know you have to look down the road. I do not disagree. But it's really all a guess. And so I'm suggesting to you to really know what your long term is. And we are never going to go away from virtual meetings, never. And as an example, there's more virtual meetings than just what we think as a typical meeting. I love my doctor's appointments virtually. If any of you have done it, and of course, no, you can't do a physical virtually, but if I have a very small problem or issue, I don't have to go somewhere. I can get a response. And then they can determine, do I need to come in? That's never going away. My very favorite that I will support as long as I'm living is the virtual cocktail hour. And that is a change due to COVID. And ladies and gentlemen, it cannot go away. You see? And yes, you're right. I cannot wait till I'm in person with many of you that I know, and that we can raise a glass to each other. Yes, but we have gotten closer because we found ways to do it more often. The other thing that's happened, and I tell you this because you're going to have to help people shift back. We've gone from experiences to things. And remember, we had gone from things to experiences. So recognize 2 things are going on here, and I'm going to look at them in the next slide, and they all have to do with technology. And there has been forced change in 2020. And I talked a little bit about it, how I really didn't want to go virtual, and yet I have. And so I want to ask you, think to yourself, the word Zoom, which is onomatopoeia, meaning it sounds like when you say it, it is what the word is, Zoom. The only place I ever heard that word was in a Mazda commercial with an annoying little boy saying Zoom, Zoom. So if you actually knew Zoom was a meeting platform before this, woo, good for you. I love this site. It's from Domo. And this shows you Zoom meeting participants every minute in 2020, 200,000 plus every minute. DoorDash delivered 555 meals a minute last year. And they're, excuse me, I apologize. They're not even the leader. Notice how much money is being spent online. It has increased again over the year before. So that it shows us how adaptable we are. Who knew there was so much I could binge on Netflix? So now is the time to reflame your thinking. And why am I telling you this? Because as we regain control of our lives, you're going to want to go back to what you're comfortable and you can't. You're going to want to say, oh, but we don't have to do it this way anymore. And I'm saying, no, you can't. I'm telling you right now, you have to prepare yourself to stop wanting to go back, because it's only forward. And what do we know about this? Your clients will expect greater responsiveness, greater preparation, and greater consideration, because everybody realizes in business, in personal, time has gotten more precious. And so what I'm suggesting to you is really focus in on your client engagement. Think ahead, ask more questions, share your ideas before implementing them. Don't assume, ask what matters. And most importantly, identify and solve the challenges and execution gaps you had pre-COVID. Because we ignored them and now we can't. And you do have some time to actually solve this. And I use a process with many of my clients, so I'm suggesting this to you. And what I've done is I put some suggestions here. It doesn't mean they apply to you. You have to make your own. But for an example, a lot of meeting planners I know are micromanagers. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't be detail oriented. What it means is you don't have to do everything yourself. Some of you are saying, but I'm a one person, one woman shop, one man shop. I gotcha. But you know what I'm talking about with micromanaging. And you need to look at stopping what didn't work before. Don't repeat it. There is no, let's do this until it works. You know, if something is not working twice, you got to think about it. The other thing I'm going to tell you we fall in love with solutions before fully understanding the problem. That's a stop. You can see some of the starts I have. And one of the start is to let go of the concept of perfection. Meaning, you don't always have to have your hands in everything. That's exactly why you hire outsiders and insiders. Some of the continuing I suggest. Listening more. We have started to listen more because it's so hard to read people from afar and with masks on. So that is a process. You make your own list. It's not a laundry list. It's 3 of your top things that you want to stop, you want to start, you want to continue. It takes planning. And finally, what I'm going to suggest to you is 4 different ways you can make better decisions. So one of the ones I use is the 5-5-5-5 analysis. And so when I'm making a decision on something, I ask, how will this be different? How will this be relative? How will this matter in 5 hours, in 5 days, in 5 weeks, and 5 months? And it's amazing then how it puts something in perspective. Because we all get hot and bothered and think we've got to move. And frankly, we're wasting our time, our money, and our energy. And we only have so much mental bandwidth. I love the Andy Grove from Intel. He was the CEO. And his question was, when he was faced with a big decision, if I were replaced tomorrow, what would my successor do? It takes you out of the personal aspect of it and allows you to look at it from a business sense. My favorite is when I'm assessing a new opportunity. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. See, if I'm not really excited about it, I'm never going to make it work. Don't just go halfway into something. No, it's a hell yes. You also could translate that to amen if you're not into 4-letter words. And lastly, know what you're trying to achieve. What is your core priority? And for some of you, it is still survival. You're not out of it yet. For some of you, it's understanding what the future will mean. For some of you, it's continuing to collaborate, but you're not sure what that means. Just know your core priority. I'm confident, given the skill and ability that the members of this chapter have, that there is so much you will be able to accomplish this year, regardless of the situation we're in. I listened to I read an article the other day quoting two major hotel brand CEOs. And one of the CEOs very clearly said they're ready when everything changes in June. I hope he's right. I do. I doubt that he's right. And I can tell you why. These are decisions, though, you have to make, not the CEO of a major hotel brand. You have to understand your own business and what it needs to continue to thrive in 2021. I wish you all the very best. And I am positive. I am cautiously optimistic. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rach. That was so enlightening and informative. I absolutely love the principle. What did you just say? If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. I think that's just a great principle in life, a guiding principle in life. So yeah. Thank you so much for that. We do have a few questions I'd love to get to. You mentioned earlier, when we were talking about vaccine distribution is so key to our success moving forward. Do you have any thoughts on how maybe we can get some underemployed or unemployed event professionals to help with that kind of distribution?
Well, that's very interesting. I really, what I do know, for an example, and I'm sure many people have seen, Amazon has stepped in and said, listen, what we do as distribution will help you. I would encourage you, there are two things I'm going to encourage. One, it's really your city and county government you should be talking to. Is there something you can do? But you need to know what your skills are. And you're right, you guys, I never thought about this. You have great organizational skills. You've got to have that one pager ready. Otherwise, they're going to look and say, what the hell, pardon me, what will meeting planners know about distribution? Do you see what I'm getting at? I'm going to encourage you. You all were talking to Darren about, how do they interact with the mayor? I think MPI Southern California should think about adding another board seat in addition to, I'm serious about the diversity and inclusion. You should have a political seat because you are an enormous chapter in a state and an area that is run by tourism, and you should have a greater voice. And so I encourage you to think about how you could create that one pager that says to government, hey, here's what we could help you do.
I think that's great.
Or
and I love the idea of adding a board position. We have a pretty broad board right now, but I absolutely love adding a board position, to get more involved in advocacy because it's a continuous struggle for everyone in our industry. So I think that's a great idea. Can you talk a little bit about the resources, the news resources that you use and that maybe you can recommend to planners and suppliers, everyone in the industry, so that we can continue to stay informed?
Sure, and know something, what I'm going to say, I make no money from these people, so this is not me marketing. But I mean, one of the things I do is Apple News, because for a small amount of money, I get a very broad exposure from the Wall Street Journal and very frankly to Vanity Fair. And see, my point to you is I read a ton of things. Now, the other thing I do is I am big on this, looking at sites, and I loved what Darren shared with you on Meetings Mean Business. Those kind of sites are terrific. The CDC has that chart that I gave you. I found it in USA Today, but from that, I went to the CDC site and there was the vaccine chart. So I use the Census Bureau site a great deal on demographics change. I use, I'm big on economic sites, so I use the CBS Market Watch. And again, you have to, I don't just use one though. I do use a primary, and that allows me then to go to others. And what I will do, Amy, so that I can quit on this, I'll put together a top 10 and I'll send it to you and you can share it. How's that?
That would be amazing.
Do it though till next week.
Not a problem. Thank you so much. That's super useful. Can you talk a little also, you talked a little bit earlier about that there's going to be an uneven global return.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have recommendations on, or can you elaborate really a little bit more on how we can prepare for that? You know, so many of our planners, you know, do plan worldwide. And so the changes everywhere across the globe, you know, can be really challenging.
Well, I think, again, what you have to pay attention to, number one, is vaccines in whatever country you're talking about or major urban area. And I mean, like, look at Great Britain. I mean, is it open? Is it closed? And it just changes constantly. And so again, when I said to you long-term was a month, do you know on statistics, long-term is a week? So don't tell me you read something on January 4th. I'm dead serious. It doesn't matter.
Go continue, please.
So I guess what I'm saying to you is, one of the things I do is the same thing I would do at every destination. Is just like the LA or the LA group. I would be in contact with the major CVB in that city, number one. I would look at that city's economic development site, number two. And number three, I'd look at the health and safety site, whatever it's called for that country. Do you know what I'm saying? So like ours is the CDC, everyone's is different. And lastly, I do look at WHO, the World Health Organization, because they cover the world. And so, yeah, it takes more time, but once you get set in what you're going to look at, then it just becomes a process.
Mm-hmm. Great, makes sense, makes sense. Can you dive a little bit more into your 5555 analysis and how you use that?
Well, you know, it used to be 10, 10, 10, just 3. And it was 10 weeks, 10 months. No, it was 10 days, 10 months, 10 years. So you see, it's really changed. I mean, that's why I'm saying, even 5 weeks, I'm like, okay, I'll look at it, but I don't know. The point of it being, use what is useful. But when I am faced with a big challenge and I'm like, seriously, not sleeping well at night, and I'm talking a business challenge, not my personal life, but I'm talking a business challenge. If I'm staying up late because I can't sleep, or if I'm getting short at work because I have a big decision to make, I'm going to sit and say to myself, Layla, will this matter in 5 days? Yes or no? Not a maybe. Yes or no? Layla, okay, if it will matter in 5 days, will it matter in 5 weeks? Okay, that's where I may be having some maybes right now. What are those maybes? Is there anything I can look into? And again, not a laundry list, a few points. And then I'm going to say, okay, how about 5 months? And all I may have is questions. It depends on if this happens and this happens. But at least I have a guide in front of me. At least I haven't just stepped off a cliff. Because I'm going to tell you frankly, when I realized I had to switch to virtual, I wanted to say, oh, guess what? I'm not going to be a consultant anymore. And then I said, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's just one of those emotional decisions. And I'm trying as hard as I can to take the emotion out of it. And that's the 555. Awesome. Or the 10, 10, 10, which it originated.
It's such a great kind of more tangible tool, you know, that we can use as we plan moving forward. So thank you for that. I think that's all the time that we have for questions. Dr. Rach, thank you so much again for your information. So incredibly informative. And again, everyone, we will provide you with Dr. Rach's presentation as well as the resources that she mentioned. And now